Coming up on Network Africa, President Edgar Lungu of Zambia reassures the public of good health after collapsing in public. Tanzania's President Samia Suluhu Hassan urges the central bank to be prepared for the use of digital currency. Plus, Nigeria's Consul General in Johannesburg paid condolence visits to the Zulu royal family. Hello and welcome to the program this week. I'm Layo Adegoke. Let's begin with stories and happenings that made headlines over the weekend.
On Saturday, Nigeria celebrated Democracy Day, a day set aside to celebrate the nation's return to democracy after years of military rule and the winner of the June 12, 1993 presidential election, Chief MKO Abiola. But rather than celebrate, some youths in the country took to the streets to protest against what they call poor governance and the difficult economic situation in the country. The protest in Lagos and Abuja was disrupted by the police who shot tear gas to disperse the protesters. Polls opened in Algeria on Saturday for a parliamentary election that the ruling establishment hopes will turn a page on 2 years of political unrest, but many voters ignored. President Abdulmajid Tebboune had called for a high turnout, but there has been little public enthusiasm for voting in recent elections, with many Algerians convinced real power is wielded by the army and security forces. The election takes place against the backdrop of a political upheaval after the leaderless Hijra protest movement led to the ousting of veteran President Abdulaziz Bouteflika in 2019 and the fall of many other senior officials. South African President Cyril Ramaphosa held bilateral talks with British Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Sunday on the sidelines of the G7 summit in Camps Bay. South Africa, which attended the meeting as a guest nation, is pushing for the temporary patent waiver of COVID-19 vaccines, but the pharmaceutical industry has opposed it, saying it will stifle innovation and do little to increase supplies. On Sunday, Pope Francis offered his prayers for the people of Ethiopia's Tigray region hit by hunger and famine and appeal for an end to the child labor in the world.
I am particularly close to the people of Tigray region of Ethiopia, which is suffering from a serious humanitarian crisis that is exposing the poorest to famine. Today, there is famine. Today, there is hunger there.
Fighting since November between Ethiopia's government and the region's ousted ruling party, the Tigray People's Liberation Front (TPLF), has displaced more than 2 million people. The conflict broke out just before the main harvest, with each side blaming the other.
To our main stories for today, Zambia's President Edgar Lungu has reassured his citizens that he is well after collapsing while attending a public event. According to a statement from his office, Mr. Lungu was presiding over the National Defense Day on Sunday when he experienced sudden dizziness in the capital, Lusaka. Secretary to the Cabinet, Simon Miti, who issued the statement, said that the president is well and has continued to discharge his duties, adding that he recovered immediately after the incident. Mr. Lungu had a similar health incident in 2015, which the presidency said was because of an esophagus condition. He's currently seeking re-election in the August 12th polls. In the meantime, Zambia's founding father, Kenneth Kaunda, is asking for prayers after being admitted to hospital. A statement from his office says he is unwell and is requesting all Zambians and the international community to pray for him as the medical team is doing everything possible to ensure that he recovers. The 97-year-old is one of the last surviving figures from Africa's anti-colonial struggle of the 1950s. He became Zambia's first president in 1964. Dr. Kaunda, who left power in 1999, has been in hospital several times before. To Tanzania now, President Samia Suluhu Hassan has urged the country's central bank to be prepared for the use of digital currencies. President Samia told the Bank of Tanzania on Sunday to be vigilant amid a rising interest and adoption of cryptocurrencies around the globe. She said, quote, "I know that many countries around the world have not accepted or started using digital currencies. However, I call upon the Bank of Tanzania to start looking into these developments just to be prepared. We don't want to be caught unawares or find out later that our citizens are ahead of us and have already started using cryptocurrencies." Well, El Salvador last week became the first country in the world to officially classify a digital currency, Bitcoin, as its legal currency. The military court in Kampala has released on bail 18 supporters of opposition politician Robert Kyagulanyi, also known as Bobby Wine, who had been arrested at an election campaign rally in December 2020. They include Bobby Wine's personal bodyguard and his musician colleague. They are part of a group of 49 people charged with possession of 4 rounds of ammunition. They have all now been released on bail. Out of those arrested, 13 were granted bail in February and 18 others in late May. They had been arrested in the Lake Victoria Island district of Kalangala during a rally at which Bobby Wine himself was also picked up and flown to his home in Kampala. During the election campaign season, the months following the January polls, Uganda witnessed a wave of arrests and alleged kidnaps of what are believed to be hundreds of opposition supporters. Well, Somalia has said it has normalized diplomatic relations with Kenya after it lifted a ban on flights to and from Mogadishu. The Somalia's Ministry of Foreign Affairs called on Kenya to reopen its embassy in Mogadishu. Now, the ministry said Somalia would in turn reopen its embassy in Nairobi. Relations between the two East African neighbors have been tense in recent years due to a maritime border row. Somalia severed relations with Kenya in December, accusing Nairobi of meddling in its internal affairs. However, Kenya denied the accusation. Well, South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa has reiterated the need for a patent waiver to allow Africa to manufacture its own COVID-19 vaccines. The president says the continent's destiny is now in its own hands as many countries report a surge in virus cases. Only about 2% of the continent has been vaccinated so far, with some countries facing vaccine shortages. Mr. Ramaphosa was a guest at the just concluded G7 summit. He says the continent wants to manufacture its own vaccines for the more than 1.2 billion people.
We believe that there is a need for solidarity to be pledged, that your G7 countries and indeed the G20 countries need to pledge solidarity with those that have been more negatively affected by the pandemic. What we have been able to get from, say, the European countries is the agreement that the World Trade Organization process must ensue, and there must be negotiations that are based on the text. And we'd like to believe that having encountered negativity and opposition right at the beginning, the position has softened. It has become much more reasonable, and for them to have agreed that we should now have text-based negotiations, it represents a move which we would like to acknowledge. And when we do get to text-based negotiations, we believe that we can make headway.
If there's any member of the media on the floor who would like to...
In my discussions with President Biden, we did say to him that we would like the doses that he's going to donate also to be channeled to Africa, also to be channeled to South Africa. And he agreed that he's going to do precisely that as soon as possible. So we should be able to get some doses from that end, and we will be able to get doses also from Europe, and we will then be able to have, as we have often said, a multi-vaccine doses type of situation. With that, we believe that many...
The G7 group has also called for an unimpeded access for aid workers to Ethiopia's northern Tigray region, where the UN says some 350,000 people are living in famine conditions. Well, even though Ethiopia has denied there is no famine, UN agencies, including UNICEF, WFP, and the WHO, they say they are extremely concerned about the situation in Tigray because the risk of famine is imminent unless food, livelihood assistance, and other life-saving intervention continues to be scaled and hostilities cease.
It's an absolute crisis in Tigray with the situation there, and catastrophic food security situation for which people have already begun to die. This is a crisis of certainly food security, but it's really a crisis of access protection issues that's preventing us from doing the work that's required. It's an incredibly dangerous environment for us to all be working in. There have been 9 humanitarians who have been killed thus far. Every day we have our teams, and this is WFP, NGOs, partners, everybody who's trying to operate in the north, find themselves challenged at checkpoints. They're increasingly hostile in some of these checkpoints. We have our beneficiaries having the things that are given to them looted from them.
We are seeing more and more young children and babies slide dangerously close to sickness and potential death from malnutrition. UNICEF's working with our partners to provide nutrition, healthcare, clean water support. However, without humanitarian access to scale up our response, an estimated 30,000 plus severely malnourished children in those highly inaccessible areas are at high risk of death.
The key message is access, access, access. We have teams at the ready. We have mobile clinics that have run in conjunction with the partners that could provide nutrition, healthcare, all the services. Only 40 have been able to be operational, 2/3 of what we've got. Our teams are being turned away by warring parties.
Nigeria's Consul General in Johannesburg, Mr. Malik Abdul Ahmed, has led a delegation of the mission and the Nigerian Citizens Association to pay a condolence visit to the Zulu royal family following the death of King Goodwill Zwelithini and also the Regent Queen Manfumbi Dlamini Zulu. The delegation was received at the Kwakangela Manke Ngane Palace in KwaZulu-Natal by the Queen Mother, Queen Mavis, who is the surviving wife of King Zwelithini's father, as well as other royal family members. Speaking in isiZulu, the Queen Mother passed on the gratitude of the royal family and prayed for continued cooperation between Nigeria and South Africa as the late king pushed for.
As you are aware, the king of the Zulu nation passed on in March, and then while we're preparing to pay the condolence visit here, 2 months later, the regent also died. It's a very unfortunate incident that has happened here. We are here to pay the condolence visit, as you can see. Why? Because, we have a need, because on behalf of the Nigerians in KwaZulu-Natal, there is a need for us to show our presence here, to identify with the grieving family at this time. Of course, the special relationship between Nigeria and South Africa. The Zulu nation is very crucial, about 11% of the population of South Africa. So it's very important that we came. That's why we came.
They were here to pay their condolences to the Zulu nation for the loss of our beloved king, and also for the loss of the regent Queen Matombi, who passed away some few weeks ago. And so we appreciate they're coming here because our friendship with the Nigerians extends for a very, very, very long time. During the apartheid years, and even today, we are still friends with them. And so this was sort of not a confirmation of the friendship that South Africa has with the people of Nigeria.
Still ahead on the program. In Egypt's bid to revive its tourism sector, a first-of-its-kind factory is producing high-end replicas of ancient Egyptian treasures just for sale. Please stay with us. Welcome back to the program. Algeria's Ministry of Communications says the accreditation of France 24 has been cancelled. The move comes a day after parliamentary elections were held in Algeria. A government spokesperson said that the French International Television News Channel had shown clear and repeated hostility towards Algeria and its institutions. The turnout for the election was registered at around 30%, the lowest for 2 decades. Official results are due in the coming days, but the Islamist MSP has claimed that its candidates are leading in most of the regions. The United Nations General Assembly has elected Ghana and Gabon to the Security Council for 2-year terms beginning on the 1st of January 2022. Other countries elected are Albania, Brazil and the United Arab Emirates.
India.
These 5 new members will replace Estonia, Niger, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Tunisia and Vietnam,
Ireland.
and non-permanent members of the UNSC. They will now join
Israel.
India, Ireland, Kenya, Mexico and Norway, and the 5 permanent members, China, France, the Russian Federation, the United Kingdom and the United States.
Jordan.
General Assembly President Volkan Bozkır announced the result
Kazakhstan.
of the vote.
Having obtained the required 2/3 majority and the largest number of votes, Albania, Brazil, Gabon, Ghana and the United Arab Emirates are elected members of the United Nations Security Council for a 2-year term beginning on 1st of January 2022. I congratulate the states which have just been elected members of the Security Council.
Obviously, small countries are witness to history when it comes to big decisions, but this is our chance not simply to witness it, but also to influence those important solutions of common interest which are global, not simply national or regional. We think that we will bring to this important table a local flavor or the approach of a small country who's in a region that has benefited greatly from multilateral engagement. And we hope that we will be a bridge setter like we've always been, also as a country who's been sort of a melting pot of the influences of the East and the West. And we hope to bring in the best examples of how to come together, to live together, to cooperate together. And we believe this will be the biggest contribution that we can make to the Council.
Thanks very much.
In the Panzi Hospital and Rehabilitation Center in Bukavu, Democratic Republic of Congo, women are dancing as a form of therapy. The center was founded by Denis Mukwege, a Congolese gynecologist who won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2018 for his efforts to end the use of sexual violence as a weapon of war and armed conflict.
It was the silence of the traumatized young women she saw before her that convinced dance teacher Amina Lusambu she must do something to help. So she set up dance sessions for rape survivors at a rehabilitation center attached to Panzi Hospital in Bukavu in eastern Congo, which according to hospital authorities has treated more than 60,000 survivors of sexual violence in its 20 years of operation.
I started doing this because of the girls who came to us in a state of silence. They were raped at a young age and they didn't know how to express themselves. And when I saw that through dance therapy, we could diagnose them through the movements of the body, I thought, why not adapt it to the youngest rape survivors and see how it works?
Now, the same women line up in brightly colored leggings for her classes, where they learn to reconnect with their bodies. The Panzi Hospital and Rehabilitation Center was founded by Denis Mukwege, a Congolese gynecologist who won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2018 for his efforts to end the use of sexual violence as a weapon of war and armed conflict.
More than 60,000 women have already been treated here. We were able to organize holistic care, which means we don't just do the medical treatment anymore. We also do psychological care. We support women to reintegrate them into society by empowering them. Economically, we support them. And then the fourth pillar of our holistic care is that we accompany them before the judges.
One 20-year-old woman in Lusambo's class says dancing has released her from the pain and fear she held inside, allowing her to sleep peacefully and smile again.
When I came to the Panzani Foundation, I was in a very bad state. I was too scared. I was hiding and didn't even want others to see me. But thanks to dance therapy, I began to approach people. I understood that my life was not yet over. I realized that I was still important in society. Dance therapy took away all the fear I had.
Experts say Congo has made some progress in combating sexual violence. Several high-level militia and army commanders have been prosecuted for rape in recent years, but the problem remains pervasive. According to the United Nations, the reasons for the prevalence of rape in eastern Congo are complex, but the eroded status of women and fragmented command structures within militia and state security forces have led to its use as a militia tactic.
Enthusiasts of ancient Egypt can now take home replicas of famous artifacts and statues that have been made available through a factory. Now, this factory is considered the first of its kind in Egypt and the Middle East, to be sold at the recently inaugurated Egyptian Museum of Civilization.
From life-sized pharaonic busts to finely painted copies of their treasured grave goods, Egypt has inaugurated a factory dedicated to making high-quality replicas of ancient Egyptian artifacts available to tourists for purchase. The 10,000 square meter Kunuz factory houses more than 150 skilled artists and conservators and has so far produced more than 6,400 replicas made out of stone, wood, ceramic, and even gold and silver. Originally inaugurated in March of this year by the Ministry of Tourism and Antiquities, the factory sits in Kayubia, Governorate Obo City, about 25 kilometers northeast of the capital, Cairo.
The ones in Khan El Khalili are imitations, commercial imitations, meaning the product does not come out the same, like in the museum.
Many of the copies will be sold at Egypt's newly inaugurated Egyptian Museum of Civilization, which in April welcomed a convoy of 22 royal mummies in a grand parade attended by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi and other officials. Each replica will have a stamp from the High Council of Antiquities, as well as a certificate proving that it is an identical duplicate of the original artifact. The models will also have barcodes, which when scanned with a smartphone, show information about the artifact, what it is made of, and where the original piece is exhibited.
Our product is a copy of the original artifact. They are made with high-quality materials. We have an example, such as this one. An annalise, a copy such as this one. It holds the stamp from the High Council of Antiquities, a barcode, and there is a certificate that states that this is an exact copy of the original artifacts. This is unavailable in ordinary Egyptian markets or with things that are sold in commercial markets.
Authorities have fired a pipeline of projects aimed at attracting tourism after the valuable sector and key source of foreign currency in Egypt witnessed a painful blow after the pandemic, with revenues plunging by 70% in 2020. Egypt is expressing optimism with regards to the sector's recovery, saying that tourist numbers have gradually increased since January 2021 to around 500,000 tourists per month.
That's it on the program for today. Thank you for watching. I'm Layo Adegoke.